Data revenue in constant currency up 32%, so we're really excited about that. Digital services revenues up around 25%. And I think if we look at the big markets, South Africa grew service revenue just over 5%. That's much better.
Yeah.
Nigeria around 11%. Iran still around 16%. So we think it's encouraging because it's positioning us well for all our big plans for the future.
The data cost thing is quite complex. Won't you just explain to us why Ekokotlamini at home experiences these high data costs and why it takes time for your efforts to be to translate through to her paying for cheaper data?
So I think maybe just at a high level what we've been saying is that MTN really committed to what we call the dual data strategy. So the value part of that is a lot of our existing customers in metro areas, high-end smartphones, already using half a gig, 2, 3 gigs a month. That's LTE rollout, that's one whole story. But that's 17 million customers of 230 across our 22 markets. So the real question is, how are we going to bring the next 100 million customers into this data world with all the opportunities it brings? And we feel there that we don't have the right commercial model for that.
Okay.
And again, it's across most of the markets. And I think it's maybe just more the phases that the industry went through, that we're now turning our attention to more the entry-level customers. They can't afford to buy big bundles. They have low-end devices. Often they're not wanting to go on a contract. And we need to come up with a commercial structure that very easily these people can come into the data world. So we often say in this data challenge that the problem really is that the data pricing curve is too steep.
Okay.
So it's quite affordable for maybe you or I who buy, say, 5 or 10 gigs per month. We're paying very similar to what we pay anywhere around the world, Brazil, Mexico, Europe. But the real heartbreak in all of this is that the very small customer, the Gogo Glamini you raise, is often paying very much higher price. So we are committed to what we say flattening the data pricing curve. We start already in some of our markets. We've made some big shifts in Cameroon, in Benin. We've made some shifts already in Iran. And of course we need also to work on this in South Africa. I guess for the South African OpCo, they've been so busy with everything else because we've got a whole turnaround of post-pay going on. And the team have a lot of complexity to deal with. But this public debate in South Africa about the high cost of data for entry-level consumers is something that very much resonates with us. And we're going to work on it and we're going to make some changes.
Here's another issue, the issue of disappearing data. I believe that is being sorted out. What has been happening with regards to disappearing data, and what kind of infrastructure do you have that eats up people's data?
It's such an unfortunate incident. And maybe I can just say that the thing with this particular example is the customer's handset is using data in the way that the handset connects to the LTE network, and that data is being counted and was being charged. But the customers turned data off on their handset. So it's very hard to explain why I should be paying for data when I've turned it off, because it's a whole technical explanation of how the network works. And what we discover, of course, is that the other operators in the South African market, they already solved this. So, we let ourselves down. It's going to be fixed on the 6th of August. I think today is the 3rd, it's 3 days away. It only affected customers with a 4G handset, and a 4G SIM, and a 4G network on prepaid who turned their data off on their handset. So I'm not trying to excuse it. It shouldn't have happened. I'm just trying to explain what happened.
Will they be getting their data back?
Yeah, again, this is a very complex thing because these customers are, coming on and off the network. And bear in mind, also, of course, these are the customers that turned the data off on the handset. So this is the signaling data traffic. It is something the team are looking at, but it's really complex also to identify.
Let's talk about the issue of the spectrum. I asked you this earlier about the importance of making sure that there is enough availability for all the players. However, government says we want to let smaller players into the market and not only make it available to yourselves because you can afford it. How do we make it easier for the one that is providing the infrastructure to to provide it equitably across all players?
You know, I think that these issues of spectrum investment, competition, small players, again, this is quite common across many of our markets. If you think what many of the regulators are looking for, is they want investment in the sector.
Yeah.
They want digital inclusion and financial inclusion and rollout and infrastructure. They also want competition, so they want to allow smaller players to come in. And in South Africa, we have all the dynamics also around transformation. So in the end, what the industry together with government has come up with is what we call the hybrid model.
Yeah.
And basically this model recognizes that we can use a wholesale operator with some spectrum as a path for smaller operators to come in and make a role for themselves in the sector.
Okay.
At the same time, we can also license spectrum directly to the existing operators, so they can continue with their investment and rollout, you know, which they're doing at scale. This is a workable solution. I think what's really important now is that it gets implemented, because we really need the spectrum to be allocated. This is super, super critical. And in many countries around the world, they already allocated this 800 spectrum, you know, 2-3 years ago. So it's one of our challenges in South Africa. We're falling behind, and this low band spectrum is super, super important also if you're wanting to roll data coverage out across our underserved areas. You know, because maybe also Gogod doesn't even have coverage in a rural area. So all of this is very much interconnected. But you know, we're very much encouraged by Minister Kagaba. As I said, in his 14-point plan, he said really wants to push to have this spectrum licensing all completed by the end of 2018. That would be a very good solution for the industry.
Furniture removal